Hello. In this article, I present a proposal on principles for of a post-anthropocentric design, some reflections on a case study. Biocentric design considers all living beings as equals on the design process. So it basically moving away from um, putting the humans always at the center and to a situation where all living beings are considered equally in the design process. It implies a new ethics, a new aesthetics, a new logic that put all forms of life not as inferior to humans, but as interdependent as necessary for all forms of life. It demands a new and radical way of thinking and doing design. These reflections are based on the preparation for a remote workshop that I organized in 2021 with our colleagues from São Paulo University and Mackenzie and Instituto Europeu de Design in São Paulo. And basically, this project, we are organizing a workshop to think about non-anthropocentric design solutions from this Park Buenos Aires in São Paulo. The idea was to consider as much as we could other forms of life. These were the clients that we select because it was a short workshop. So basically, we select termites, native stingless bees, moths, bacteria, a butterfly, spider, humans. Humans are not outside of the equation. A species of like bird and a small rodent and another bird insect called besouro in Portuguese. All these were already mapped in a survey done by the City Council of São Paulo across the city of São Paulo. So they are actually all present in that park. So the principles we come to the conclusion of the literature review and based on this practical case. One of them, the first one here, is the bio-inclusive principle. This principle means to actively include non-humans needs into the design process. Including the non-humans in the actual process means also, for example, in this case, uh, consider needs that not necessarily brings a direct benefit to humans, but they are necessary for well-being of other forms of life. For example, creating spots for a bird stationary with raw materials that can enable the production of their nest. Usually, these parks are clean regularly, and quite often there is a lack of raw material for building a nest, so they have a increasingly harder time to find materials. Another principle is the biorhizomatic principle. It means to consider that all living beings are mutually interdependent of interconnections that not always are evident or visible. We can't see all the connections in nature, but this principle means we should accept this as uh, something that is already happening in the real world, regardless of our cognition. For example, uh, termites, once they open a hole on the wood to eat the wood, they also benefit bees that quite often use these holes to make their nest. And so creating one idea here that we propose on this, we bring to the workshop, was creating pollination corridors across the park with native plants required by these particular species. Another one is, for example, signaling protocol and device for those trees that are being attacked by termites to avoid the use of insecticides or the early removal of the food source. Another principle is the Biosynergetic Principle, which means through design, of the action of design, to actively seek to environmental rebalancing via the recognition and reestablishment of synergies between living beings. So reconnecting these living beings and promoting, protecting the existing synergies. Here, for example, this Platypodinae, this Besouro de Ambrosia, it, when he flies, he carries this bacteria on his body, and once he gets inside of a wood, it plants this fungi, and it eats as it grows. So they are one is dependent on the other. So, for example, in this case here, uh, one of the propositions here is to allow some of the trunk to remain on the floor on shady areas where it will be more likely to become humid, because this insect, it needs wood on 40% of humidity. So it will help both these two insects to the insect and the fungi to thrive and survive in the environment. Another principle is the bioequity principle. It considers in equal manner the relevance of all forms of life, whether human or non-human. That means we are not moving away the human from the equation, but not it's there. It's just not the only client. And finally, another principle here is the mutual becoming principle. It means that our connection with nature leads to a fundamental reciprocity. If we change in nature, change ourselves, and vice versa. Recognizing these mutual becomings, how we affect the nature and how nature affects us, is a necessary principle on the design process to fully understand the contribution that design can make. So the conclusion of this paper are, one of the conclusions is that our concept of sustainable development should maybe be revised, because when you talk about future generations on the more orthodox definitions, often we are talking about humans. On this biocentric point of view, uh, the sustainable development should consider future generations as entailing all living beings. And very clearly, there is a lack of consolidated biocentric design theory, tools, methods. So the research community should really think about contributing with this uh, body of knowledge to enable a truly biocentric design. Thank you very much. This is my email if you have any questions. Bye bye.